What's up, everybody? We're trying a new spot out this time, playing at the Bellagio, some 5-10, sometimes with a $20 straddle on, doing WSOP 2023. And one of the first hands of the night, I wake up with ace-10 offsuit in cutoff. No straddles on this time, but I do open up to $30. My opponent to the left of me on button puts in the call, and everybody else actually folds. So we're actually going to be going heads up to a flop of 8-5-4, 2 hearts, looking pretty good here. We have 2 overs, and if we can see 2 more hearts on the board, we will hit the nut flush. And this time around, being out of position, I do decide to check to my opponent. They put out a really small wager of $20, and I was deciding basically when I did check if I did see a small enough bet, we were going to go for it. We're going to be putting in that check rizzle here to start off the video in session. We're making it $80 to go. F that small bet. Let's see what my opponent has to say about this. And unfortunately, after they're thinking about it for a little bit, they start reaching for more chips than $80. I'm not liking how this looks. And they actually put out a bet. This is a 3-bet on the flop. And they make it 200. Yes, $250 to go. So I pretty much went 4x their size. They're going 3x my size. And we're just having the ace of hearts and a 10 and 2 overs. It's just not going to be enough for me to continue here. I'm just going to have to lay it down and believe that maybe they just had a sad or a better over pair or something like that than the board. Nothing I can do here. Just going to have to move on to the next hand. And for the next hand, we're going to wake up with pocket 10s, red 10s, and under the gun +1. My opponent in under the gun does put out an open to $40. No straddle on once again in this hand. And with that big 4x open, this time around, I do elect to put in the 3-bet instead of flatten in position here. I 3x their 3-bet. I make it $120 to go. It does fold all the way around to my opponent in small blind, and they start grabbing more chips than the $120 I put in the middle. They actually put in the cold 4-bet to $250. The person in under the gun does fold, and right here I have a really tough decision. This is a really strong cold 4-bet, but hey, we are playing a little bit more than $1,000 effective on the table, more than 100 big blinds. I'm not going to let them just put in 2x my 3-bet and not see a flop here in position. So we're definitely going to be flicking in the call, and we're going to be going heads up in this cold 4-bet pot to a flop of 7-3-8 2 hearts. So this is a decent flop for pocket 10s. We are beating some of their bluffs, but obviously we are way behind to pocket aces, kings, and possibly queens here. So looking pretty rough, but at least we do have a heart in our hand. We could also draw to a 10 high flush. I mean, that can beat black aces and black kings of that nature. So let's see what we can do. And my opponent does put in the c-bet here, which is expected on this board texture. They do make it $150 to go. Not really too big of a bet here. Not going to be going anywhere yet. And I'm also not going to be raising in position here this time. I'm just going to be flicking in the call. So we're going to go heads up once again to the turn, and it comes the 9 of spades. A really good turn for me here. Now we are open-ended to the nuts straight. Either a jack or a 6 would be beautiful here. I can really put my opponent in a shitty spot, and this time I actually will have the nuts straight, so that would really be great here. And unfortunately on the turn, my opponent is not taking their foot off the gas. They are still going here. They put out a bet of $330, and once again, relative to how much is already in the middle, it's not the biggest bet. It's a little bit less than 50%. Obviously, I am not going to be going anywhere yet with my pocket 10s. We can turn, well, we can river the nut straight here. So we are going to be flicking in the call. Let's hope we find a really good card on the river. And we go to it, and it does come a sad 2 of diamonds, rubber ducky, relative brick here. Obviously, nobody has any 2s in their hands in this cold 4-bet pot. And on the river, my opponent's going to be putting me all in here, and I'm just faced with a really tough spot. It's either I have to believe my opponent actually does have an overpair, or maybe they just have something like ace king, ace queen, or some other combination that they wanted to bluff here. And it's just a really shitty spot to be in here with pocket tens. You know, I would call better overpairs here. I obviously do have better overpairs here, and you know, I could have just rivered the straight. This time I did not do that, so for those reasons I'm just going to be laying it down here. Just really don't see too often that people actually put in the code 4 and put in that triple barrel at these stakes. Just have to be really careful. If they did bluff, beautiful, but my opponent did later on in the session let me know they did have a decent hand, so I'm just going to have to believe them and believe that this was a great fold. Just going to have to move on to the next hand. And it's looking like a pocket pair party once again, but we wake up with the best pocket pair starting hand in the game. Pocket aces, black aces in under the gun position. No strata was on once again. I do open it up to $30. And then I have somebody in middle position. They actually flat and put in a call. And then somebody in cutoff as well comes along with the call. I do not know why so many people flat at these stakes. Why can't they just put in a 3-bet and we can just battle with aces? But no, we're going to have a single raise pot, unfortunately, here with pocket aces. So we're going to go into the flop 3 ways as everybody else folds. And we go to it and it comes Jack, 7, 9, 2 clubs. Do have the ace of clubs in my hand, so pretty good here. Could, of course, once again go 4 cards to the nut flush. Seems like that seems to be happening a lot here, but pretty good just in case somebody already has a better hand than I have right now. And this time, being out of position with this crazy board texture here, I decided, you know what, let me chill. Let me see what my opponents do. I'm going to pot control a little bit. I do put in the check, and my opponent in middle position actually puts in the check as well. But my opponent in the cutoff looks like they have other ideas here. They do put out a bet, and they make it $50 to go. No problems with me there. They pretty much bet roughly 50% in a pot. Definitely just going to be putting in a call here. Not going to be putting in that check rizzle. Just smooth calling. And my opponent in middle position does fold, so at least we're actually going to be going just heads up to the turn. And it comes the 9 of spades. Really rough turn. I mean, at least it's not the 9 of clubs, but 9 of spades is a pretty rough turn here. Obviously, if they do have a 9, looking pretty rough. And yeah, just hopefully they just don't have a 9 that they just bet in position, but they can. So we do have to tread cautiously here. And because of that, I do put in the check, and my opponent is continuing the story that they really have a strong hand. They put out a bet of $220, and I'm like, okay, here we go again. One of these pots where I have pocket aces, and I'm facing these massive bets in position. But yeah, really can't go anywhere yet with them betting 220. Just cannot lay this down. I know it's getting close to a pot size bet there, but hey, I'm not going to go anywhere yet. So we do flick in the call with aces, hoping that we can see just a brick on the river, or maybe just river and ace for top boat here. So we do put in a call, and we go to the river, and it comes the 7 of hearts, not the river I wanted to see. Obviously, at least it's not a jack, so I am still ahead of their jack X. But yeah, like I said, if they did bet that 9 on a flop, they pretty much do have the nut boat here, so have to be a little bit careful. So I do once again put it in the check, and I'm hoping my opponent can just please check back. And they decide not to. They actually put out the triple barrel in position, ladies and gentlemen. They make it $400 to go, and it is almost another pot size bet, just a little bit less than pot, but it's pretty much almost there. So really a rough spot for me here, and I don't snap call. I go into the tank because I've been in these spots so many times with aces, and I just call here and you lose, right? But I did think about it, and I was like, okay, had to break down the hand. What is my opponent going to be betting here on the river? And after going through my whole thought process on everything, pretty much just put them on having a 9, or they just had a bluff at this point. You know, I just don't really see my opponent, especially at these stakes, going for that extra bet here with a jack, and honestly the only jack they probably would do this with is ace jack, and I have two aces in my hand, so it's very hard to have ace jack here. So yeah, with that being said, I just feel like they have a decent amount of bluffs, and I didn't see my opponent actually betting a 7 here. I just didn't believe that they would bet their 7 on the turn and things like that. So with all of that being said and breaking a hand line like that, I said, you know what, you're bluffing, I'm gonna put in the call. And I see the great fucking news. They turn over 8-5 of diamonds. My opponent was spazzing. I am completely surprised that they had 8-5 of diamonds. That is not something I would ever believe that somebody would be flattened in cutoff with. So it's not more so about them actually putting in the triple barrel bluff in position. That's not the crazy thing. The crazy thing is them just having 8-5 of diamonds. It's really, really a loose call. And once this happens, I do make sure to make a mental note for when I do play this player again in another hand. And for the next hand, it's not a pocket pair city no more. We're just going to wake up with King Jack suited in the big blind. Low Jack does decide to open up to $30. Hijack folds, and cutoff actually puts in the cold call once again for $30, and it does fold all the way around to me. And you know I'm gonna have other plans here. Not gonna be flattened with King Jack suited. This is a beautiful 3-bet squeeze spot. Don't have to take it every time, but y'all know me, we love taking spots like this. So I put in the 3-bet squeeze. I make it $140 to go to put my opponents to the test. Hopefully they do just fold. If not, we have a hand with decent equity, but it would definitely be very rough to be playing a pot out of position with just King Jack suited. And I do not get my wish here. Low Jack actually puts in the call, but at least cut off fold. So I did weed out some of the players there. And now we're just only going to be going heads up instead of 3-ways to a flop of Jack 7-7 rainbow. I mean, this is pretty much the best flop I can ever ask for with King Jack suited. Obviously I am worried about my opponent having some combinations of 7x suited and things like that. They're not just gonna have like a 7-6 off or 8-7 off unless they're just wilding. I mean, some people be wilding, so you got to be careful. But yeah, I don't really see them having that. And now I'm only behind basically two, let's say, pocket queens, pocket kings, and ace jack. So with that being said here, I'm feeling pretty good here. I do load up the clip here, and I put out a pretty well decent sized wager and bet here. I make it $200 to go. My opponent doesn't think about it too long. They pretty much just almost insta-muck their cards, and we managed to take down a pot. Not complaining here. And next hand for the night, we once again wake up with a King X suited. This time is going to be King 10 suited in hijack. It does fold around to me, and I open up to $30, and then it does fold all the way to button, and they're going to be putting in the 3-bet to $130. Does fold all the way around to me, and we are playing really deep here. But I was looking at it, I'm like, do I just want to flat here? And why is this person 3-betting to $130? That was a pretty massive 3-bet. I know we're playing a little bit deep, but I was like, you know what? Just looks like they kind of scared and don't want me to call at all. That was my read in game. This person hadn't been at the table too long, so I didn't have much of another read on them, but that's what I did based on the sizing. And I said, you know what? All right, this time around, let me put some pressure on them. I just love doing it right. Just can't help myself. I put in the 4-bet. I make it $280 to go, and I'm just hoping to get the fold here. Even if my opponent does call, it's okay. I'll make sure I play this pot very cautiously, being out of position. But to my surprise, my opponent says, no, 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 no. They are not going to be putting it in the call, and they're not going to be folding. They actually load up a 5-bet in position to $520. A 5-bet, pretty much a min 5-bet, almost just 2x my size, and a little bit less than it, obviously. But yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm folding. This hand is over. There's nothing I can do. Yeah, I guess I just lit $280 on fire. Well, relatively $150, because I could have just called out of position and saw a flop and then played. But hey, at least I pretty much got my information. My opponent had a way better hand than me, so I'm not complaining. Just gonna have to move on to the next hand. And for the next hand, we're going to wake up with ace king suited and under the gun +1 position. And person in under the gun once again has a big massive open of 4x. They make it $40 to go, thus making me have to up my 3-bet size. And once again, so I do 3-bet to $120 this time. It folds all the way around to button, and button actually comes along with the 3-bet cold call. Now, no problem there with that, but then small blind says, hey, I might as well just jump in the party too. They flicking the call, and with under the gun getting this good of odds here in a 4-way pot, they pretty much just say F it as well. They might as well call with whatever they're opening with. So unfortunately, we're actually going to have to go 4 ways in this 3-bet pot to a flop of 5, 10 ace, 2 clubs. What a beautiful flop. I could not have asked for a better flop. Maybe if I just flopped 3 clubs or just flopped the nut flush, but come on now. We have top pair, top kicker, and we are drawing to the nuts with the 2 clubs. Under the gun, of course, decides to put in the check, and this time being multi-way, well, massively multi-way in this 4-way pot, I decide to chill. I'm not going to be putting in the c-bet this time. I put in the check as well. And my opponent on button actually puts out a bet of $240. So this is roughly 50% of the pot, which is a fine size for them to use multi-way here. And small blind actually folds, and the person in under the gun folds. So this is actually really good. Well, not that good, because I mean, if I hit a club, obviously I just want to get more money in the middle, but it's okay to be heads up here just in case we don't end up finding a club and we just have top pair, top kicker. Obviously it's going to be really hard for a hand like that to hold and win when we go to a river 4 ways, right? So with that being said, I put the $240 in the middle. We're flipping the call, and we're going to be going to a turn, and it comes the 4 of spades, relative blank here. Don't see my opponent really having ace 4 suited here, so we're still going to be looking pretty good. And I decide to, of course, put in the check, and button thinks about it for a little bit, and they're actually going to be checking back here, which is really nice. I don't mind taking this to the river for free. And we go to it, and it comes the 4 of clubs. What a beautiful river to see here. I'm not complaining. We just rivered the nut flush here, and now it is my turn to take over the betting action here. So I do load it up. I think about my sizing, and I say, well, we're gonna make it pretty big here. Definitely going to be making it $740 to go, and my opponent actually goes into the tank. And a really good thing is here that my opponent could have had pocket 10s, but if they did have pocket 10s, I would see them bet in the turn. I don't think they would ever bet pocket 10s multi-way and then actually check back the turn here with the flush draw being on the flop. So I'm not really worried about pocket 10s, and with them tanking, I pretty much know that they're either going to be calling or folding. So I'm like praying, just call, just call, just call, just call. And after a minute or so, my opponent finally flicks in the call, and we turn over the nut flush, and they just shake their head and they muck their cards. What a way to win a massive 3-bet pot multi-way and getting that much money in. It was over a buy-in going in there in the middle to win that. Just gotta love it. And for the next hand, I have ace queen offsuit here, and this time finally the $20 straddle was going to be on. It does fold around to me, and I do open up to $50. It does make it 2 cutoff, and they put in a call, and button's going to be put in the call as well. So we're actually going to be going 3 ways to a flop of ace 9-9 rainbow. Pretty good flop here. I do have top here and should have the best kicker. Nobody should have ace king here. Hopefully not. I mean, why should they have? They just shouldn't have ace king. But you know how people play here. They're scared of 3-bet ace king, right? Because it's a drawing hand and it doesn't have a mate hand. Yeah, I get the point. Anyway, we're back to it. Ace queen out of position. So this time here, being out of position and the board having 2 9s on it, my opponents can have some 9x in their range. So I decide to chill. Just going to be putting in the check. 2 pot control here, and my opponent in cutoff actually puts in the check, and then button actually puts in a bet of $50. And this time around, I'm definitely going to be putting in the call, and my opponent in cutoff actually does fold. So we're actually just going to be going heads up to a turn, and it comes the 10 of clubs. No flush draws out there on the board. We do have a rainbow board here on the turn. And something really to keep in mind here is that this is actually the same opponent that bluffed me earlier when I had pocket aces, when they had 8-5 of diamonds. So, hey, if they do put in that triple barrel here, we have to keep that in mind that they did bluff earlier. And on the turn, I do put in a check. And surprisingly, this time around, my opponent actually does check back. So I guess they were just prepared that, hey, definitely just going to be calling here. And we go to the river, heads up once again, and it's going to be the 5 of hearts, relative blank. Nothing really got there. No really big improvements. Still worried about the 9, but at this point, my opponent probably would have bet their 9 on the turn, right? So yeah, not really too worried here. So I decide, okay, I got to take over the action. Got to load up a bet myself. And I do size up a bit here, make it $200 to go. And my opponent pretty much just snap fold, so they didn't want anything of it. So I guess they didn't really have a strong enough hand to call there with. Maybe they had some random pocket pair, just some draw or some. I mean, not really much draws out there, but I think they just must have just had a pocket pair they were just trying to get people to fold flop with. Not 100% sure, but hey, very happy to take it down. And for this hand, we're going to be in the big blind this time around. Wake up with a Jack 5 suited. No shadow on again, and hijack's going to be put in and open for $30. Folds all the way around to small blind, and they're going to be putting in the call. And I'm saying, oh, not the strongest suited Jack X here, but hey, I'm going to flick in the call. Let's see if we can hit something. So we're actually going to be going 3 ways to a flop of 4-6-2 rainbow. And on this flop, small blind puts in the check. I put in the check, obviously hoping that we can just find a 3 somewhere to turn the nuts maybe. And it's pretty good that my other opponent is actually going to be put in the check. So we're actually going to go to the turn for free. Can we hit the straight? And it comes the 7 of clubs. That is not the card I wanted to see. And with that card coming out, small blind actually almost puts out a pot-sized bet here. They make it $70 to go. And I think, they're betting here, but I'm trying to put a little bit pressure on them here. I know I just have Jack 5 suited, which is pretty much nothing. But right now I am open-ended to the said almost nuts. If a 3 comes, it's an 8 comes. So with that reasoning, I'm trying to put them in the blender a little bit. I do decide to raise in position. Yes, with only an open-ended straight draw. I raise in position. I make it $200 to go. And my opponent to my left does fold. And permanent and small blind actually thinks about it for a little bit. But they're going to be coming along with the call. So we're going to need some help on the river. And we go to it, and it actually does come to 3 of hearts. We now pretty much have the nuts unless they somehow flat it. 8-5 of maybe diamonds in the small blind like that other person did. But no, hopefully they don't have that hand. I don't really think this opponent to my right would actually ever have that. And with the 4 card straight coming on, they do put in a check. I do put out a massive bet here, continuing the story that I have a really good hand. I make it $360 to go. My opponent actually goes into the tank for roughly a minute to a minute and a half, and then they finally do lay down their cards. So we do take it down, and they end up saying they folded a big hand, and they were only, of course, losing to the straight. But I mean, I did have the straight. They asked if I had it, and I mean, as usual, what I always say, if somebody asks if I had something, and as usual, what I said to them, if you subscribe to my channel, then later you'll see the video come out and blah, 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 blah. It's just the line that I always use and let people know at the table. I'm not going to show you my cards. Just a little bit too much information. Once in a while I do, but just not going to do that. Hey, if you want to see the hand later on and I beat you in a big pot, just drop that sub and then go watch the video later, and then you'll finally get your answer. And this time we're going to be having a bomb pot at Bellagio. This time here, they only do 1 board, and we each going to be putting in $30. We're actually going to be 7-handed here, so there's going to be roughly 210 in the middle before the rake comes out. And I'm actually happy that we only do one board. It just saves so much time. Just makes the game so much easier, unless you're doing PLO, of course. So yeah, like I said, we're going to be going 7 ways on the button in a bomb pot. Love getting a button in a bomb pot. It's just like the best. I mean, it's always the best position to be in poker. But in a bomb pot, love to see it, of course. So yeah, 7 ways to a flop of 9, 5, ace, 2 hearts. We're drawn to the 10 high flush, and it is really good that there's a 9 and a 5 on the board, because we can actually go 8, 6 for a straight, 6, 8 for a straight. That's the exact same 2 numbers. Yeah, get the point. We can go run a straight, and we can also just turn or maybe river a 10 high flush. Hopefully nobody else has a jack high or queen high flush, etc. draw. Because once again, in bomb pots, ranges are infinite. You have to be prepared to face and see anything. So we do see a couple of checks, and then Under the Gun actually puts out a bet of $100. It does fold around to hijack, and they put in the call. Then it folds around to me on the button, and I'm going to be putting in the call too as well myself. Hopefully hit a heart on the turn, and we go to it, and it comes the 6 of hearts. What a beautiful card to see. Valentine's Day is coming a bit late this year, but we are not complaining. Hopefully this is the best hand currently right now. Under the Gun puts in the check. My opponent in hijack puts in the check, and of course we're going to be betting here. We don't want that 4th heart to come on the river, and then somebody has that 4 card flush with a better card. Don't ever want that to happen. So we're putting out a bet. Let's hopefully we can get some chips in the middle. I make it $340 to go, and surprisingly my opponent in Under the Gun and my opponent in hijack both fold. Not the result that I wanted to see here, but hey, at least we do take down that bomb pot. So much dead money goes in the middle there, so you cannot complain. If you make your hand on the turn, you make a bet, and everybody folds. No problem. No problem at all. And next hand, do wake up with King, Queen suited in middle position. They're coming to play this hand. The strato is actually going to be on for $20. And in middle position, I am going to be opening up to $50. It does fold all the way around to button. And people love flat in the position, of course. They do put in the call, and everybody else actually folds. So we're actually going to be going heads up to a flop of Queen 10-3, 2 clubs, no diamonds on the board at all. Not looking too good here, but I do have top pair, second best kicker. Hopefully we can find a hold all the way to the river though, and there's no scary turns. And rivers as well. And just being heads up this time, I do decide to keep the initiative, being a pre-flop aggressor. I do put out a bet of $50, and my opponent is going to be coming along with the call. We go to a turn, and it comes the 8 of spades. Obviously not the best turn in the deck. At least it wasn't the 8 of clubs, but 8 of spades. Now we are losing to Jack 9 and things like that. And if they somehow randomly have pocket 8s, then I can lose to that too as well. So you're looking pretty rough here, but I decide to not slow down. We are just heads up here. I just have to beat one opponent, so I still put out a bet on turn. Not the biggest bet, but I do just make it $70 to go. And still my opponent is not going anywhere. They put in the call. So we're going to go to the river, and it comes the Jack of Diamonds. Especially not a good river. Obviously now a 4-card straight is on the board here. I can also lose to hands like Queen Jack, which isn't really good because I was obviously ahead of that, but obviously 2 pairs are going to beat my single pair right now. So I have to be a little bit careful here. So with that being said, I do put in the check, thinking about what my opponent is going to be betting, and if they do bet, what size I will call. But luckily for me, my opponent pretty much just puts in a check after deliberating for like 10-20 seconds. I turn over my King Queen suited, and they actually muck their cards. I mean, that's a really good result for this harbor run out. No complaints here. Winning this pot is a really good thing. And for this hand here, we're going to have some blind versus blind action. It does fold all the way around to me in the small blind, and I open up to $30. And my opponent to my left, she's going to be putting in a call. So we're actually just going to be going heads up to a flop of a 9-3-2, 3 clubs, monotone flop. We are drawn to the 3rd nuts here with the Queen of Clubs. Looking pretty good here. And with that being said, drawing so well here, I do decide to put the C bet in out of position in this blind versus blind pot. I make it $20 to go, and I see my opponent. She starts to reach for some chips. She actually raises in position to $60. Like, oh, this is really rough here. Raise in position, blind versus blind on a monotone board. That is pretty effing strong, but not going to be going anywhere yet. Drawing to the third nuts. I do flick in the call, and we go to a turn, and it comes the ace of hearts. Not the blankest card. Obviously, if they did have the ace of clubs only, they can now have a pair and the nut flush draw, so have to be wary of that. But yeah, let's see where this hand's gonna go. I do put in a check, and then surprisingly, she actually checks back as well. That's actually really good news to me. I think an ace would be betting here and continuing a lot. So we're actually going to be going to the river, and it comes the ace of spades. And with the double ace coming at this point, I'm like, okay, my opponent raised in position, which is pretty strong. They check back the turn on the ace though, and I'm like, okay, I'm just sitting here with queen high with the queen of clubs. Do I want to put my opponent in a blender, or do I just want to give up? Blender, give up. Blender, give up. Of course, we're going to go with option one. Come on now. You already know me. We're putting them in a blender. We're betting, and we're not just going to be betting here. We're going to be putting in a massive overbet. We make it $240 to go, putting my opponent to the test, and they pretty much fold in 2 seconds. Love to see it when you're just pure bluffing and you overbet and your opponent doesn't even think about it. Love taking out pots like this. And for my first session here at the Bellagio, we have a profitable one. I make $1,550. And if you like that video, check out this next one where I play at the Aria, the same stakes, and we have a really swingy session going up and down the whole day.